In 2008, after a 5 to 6 year absence from producing new fighting game titles with the Street Fighter series, Street Fighter 4 debuts in arcades, and it's a big deal. Even though in this era, there were many popular titles from Arc System Works, Bandai Namco through Tekken, and also Virtua Fighter titles that continue to have good success in arcades.
I feel like in college, I didn't know people like played Tekken. I was like, oh, it's just Tekken. You just like mash, right? I didn't really know people played Tekken like that, so I don't really know what's going on around then. Very, very curious about this specifically.
And so this game had been played competitively for, going on 6 or so years. You finally have to ask the question, what comes next? So there was Street Fighter V. And now with the community having expectations and a sense of a finale, right? Something is about to end before one door opens, and with this new Street Fighter V title, and thus the final Capcom Cup and Capcom Pro Tour.
Okay, this is actually pretty interesting if you think about it, because I'm always the like new game and new series or moving from one franchise to another and like the challenges with that person. So I think Street Fighter actually had a pretty Street Fighter 5 to Street Fighter 6 is actually like the normal style of like what you would expect. 3 to 4 is pretty interesting, mostly because like it was just such a huge gap and people were actually just really happy to have Street Fighter 4, and 2 people were happy to have them like step back, because again, the base of Street Fighter 4 is Street Fighter 2. It's Street Fighter 4 is like not a new game from that perspective. It's like the same as like Exert. Like Exert is not a new game where like easy examples of what I just said, right? Like Street Fighter 4 to 5 or like 5 to 6. 3 to 4 is a really, really, really rare in fighting games having something like that.
And it opens with Shadaloo Showdown in early February, where Kazunoko loses to Momochi twice. And this is a recurring theme with this particular year. It's not uncommon for some players to have a particular player that they struggle against. But throughout this year, Kazunoko really struggled against Momochi. In April, and this is where the story gets interesting, we go to NCR. This is a notable event because on this year's iteration of the Capcom Pro Tour, this is an auto-qual spot. The winner gets an automatic spot in the Capcom Pro Tour finals that year. It's a pretty standard tournament up until the top 16.
Yeah, this is what majors used to look like, by the way. Hotel ballrooms.
Kazunoko ends up having to play against Knuckle-Doo, and Kazunoko wins. However, as the bracket proceeds and they move on to the loser side of the bracket, where Snake Eyes has to play Ricky Ortiz, the crowd, the commentators, TOs notice something strange. Zangief's pushback on Banishing Flat and EX Banishing Flat behavior.
No! No.
Seems a little off. They investigate the machine, and it turns out the set that they were playing on was using the wrong version of the game. Now, the real culprit behind all of this is none other than PR Balrog.
Why?
The tournament was using PR Balrog's Xbox, and he decided to go home and take his Xbox. So the system that they hot swapped it with was not updated. So they decide to run back all of the matches that had previously been played.
Fair.
And Kazunoko loses in almost like speedrun fashion, just destroys her. Almost immediately after this, in the top 8, Kazunoko falls to Gamer B 3-1 in the loser's side of the bracket. And so he finishes in 7th place. Guess who wins and qualifies? Daigo Umehara. You got to feel for John Choi, who is more or less kind of a mouthpiece for this kind of event, right? You got to feel bad for him because he has the right to twit longer. He's super apologetic.
Ooh, there's a lot of shit here, huh? Interesting.
He offers Kazunoko a flight to make up for this mishap. So Capcom Cup goes down in December, and it's time for the brackets to be revealed. And guess who Kazunoko has to play first round? None other than 801 Strider. Kazunoko not only gets that initial win, he then has to play Problem X, where he doesn't drop a game. He then has to play Misei in a 1-3, does not drop a game. So just like that, he finds himself in top 8 winner's side. So then you get to the finals, where Kazunoko has...
So some of you guys might forget how Kaz is the GOAT of Rushdown in fighting games, maybe. Is this not literally an example of what I was fucking talking about? Because of formats of other stuff, we know these stories of these people and what it adds so much drama and personality to these tournament stories, because they have a way to both perform and show themselves. So while it's, 1, interesting, and 2, it's about an interesting player who's had a very storied career, And I mean, right now he's on the low, but we know he's a GOAT. It's like on the other hand, it's like that thing. You know what I mean?
And just like that, you have a Kazunoko in grand finals, all because PR Balrog took his Xbox home. Daigo ends up winning over Shen, and we get that fated grand final set, the grand finale of Street Fighter 4, and it's Kazunoko versus Daigo. And then you have Kazunoko, who had a history of playing a variety of different titles, Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, etc. He had a competitive focus in those titles and did very well, qualifying for SBO Togeki Nationals in Guilty Gear several times. And so players who played Guilty Gear or maybe some of those Arc System Works titles in the West, they knew his name. But for, I think, a lot of Western players and competitors, his appearance in Street Fighter 4 international competition was kind of new.
Who is it? Fuck. I think it's F-Chap who shit on Kazunoko to like call him just some shit master or whatever, right? That's the level. Like at this time, you would never ever hear an anime player like flame Kaz like that. It's always like, oh, this guy's the GOAT. You guys don't get it.
This whole set, through the first 4 games, Kazunoko is banging on various wake-up options to keep Daigo guessing. And then right when Daigo is frustrated enough and willing to give respect, that's when Kazunoko will just block. And he's been doing this to people and frustrating people this way with a variety of cheap characters. He goes to characters that have these kinds of tools and these kinds of options to be able to play that game. He's like a very good like mind game kind of player. As soon as he finds an opening, it's just EX lunge punch, EX DP confirmed. Throughout this entire tournament, Kazunoko's hit confirmation had been incredible. Kazunoko scores a perfect victory and maintains that meter advantage. It goes into a final round scenario here. And with neck-breaking pace, Kazunoko leverages some of that gauge for a wall push after a hit confirmation combo. It's just scrambles and off to the races from there. And he's able to score the win. And just like that, the hero falls, the villain triumphs.
Truly, maybe the happiest I've ever seen this dude. You can tell it's the squint. It's the squint.
In a bizarre twist of fate, after
he actually
what
can't
happened
believe
months
it,
prior,
he's like, oh, fuck
where it seemed
yeah.
like even space and time bent to his will, Kazunoko closes out Street Fighter 4 as the Capcom Cup 2015 champion.
Yeah, he actually just looks like he can't fucking believe it.
Think about it. You can't help but be reminded of the famous Snake Eyes quote.
I feel like the top players in Street Fighter 4 are so much better than any other fighting game. It's like, you know, this is the top level at other fighting games, and in Street Fighter 4, you know, this is the top level.
I'm sure he has gotten Omega memed for that. He's got an Omega meme for that. I remember when I heard that, I was like, this is fucking stupid. Now, I understand what he was trying to say. Maybe he wasn't trying to say something, but basically, different fighting games do have different competition levels. That is true. The games that are main games have higher competition levels than the main games that are side games. It just is what it is. As far as the specifically Street Fighter people, though, the thing that I think he missed is that the games that are main games have more competition than the games that are not main games. So if someone is from a competitive game and they know how to learn and they're willing to swallow their ego in the new game that, you know, systems are different and maybe something's annoy them that they don't have to deal with in their old game, they're willing to swallow that, they can get really fucking, I bet, like, the fighting game players, right? Not the Street Fighter players or the Tekken players or the Guilty Gear players or the Mortal Kombat players. There's a group of fighting game players, people who can play multi-game. There are people who play multiple games, right? And most of it is from they just play the games that are main games and have a lot of competition.
Is the fact that so many of the players that were competing in this game came from different games. That highlighted the beauty of it. Is that all these contributing players from so many different scenes, from Virtua Fighter, from Guilty Gear, from Blade, from all these different games came together. And that's what created that just well of competitive.
And these moments are rare, by the way. These moments are not common of like, I would say it's like SF4, and then after that probably Dragon Ball, and then after that SF6. These moments of like, honestly, maybe Fatal Fury is a small version of it, but then I think 2X is going to be a bigger version of it, of like everyone enters. Like truly everyone enters. Guilty Gear was like that at start too. First like 4 to 6 months was like everyone was on it. Like those moments. Those moments are not common.
Street Fighter 4 goes down as a monumental game in the course of fighting game history just because of a mainline Capcom entry after a long period of time when there wasn't one like that. It hit a little bit differently. And this is a game that even now a lot of players have very strong nostalgia for, just because it was the game that for so many players, this was the first game where they started traveling for these kinds of events and competing in these kinds of stages and having this kind of spotlight. And in spite of its many faults, it was an incredible just turning point for these games in terms of not only community infrastructure, but also just the nature of the competition and how we engage with it. Capcom Cup 2015, to me, is the end of an era in its own way.
Oh, well-written video. Well-written video maybe needs a better title. Maybe I gotta hit my boy. This video is too good for it to not have a lot of views. This is what pains me about Maji and Obama's videos, dude. He actually got so much better at making videos, man. It's probably like, actually for him, it's probably performing pretty well, huh? This is probably like 5,500 in 4 hours for, yeah, okay. Okay.